faster 5T is a more exhilarating 5T.
Full throttle.
But most people slap a whole bunch of upgrades on all at once and then have no idea where to actually give credit. We are going to do the exact opposite and test, and test, and test, and test. Every upgrade gets a chance to prove its worth. We're going to seek out the honest limits of not only this truck, but also some of the most capable electronics in RC. How much speed does each component add? What new problems does it create? And which upgrades are actually worth your hard-earned cash? Before we get to upgrades, we need to know our baseline. This is my stock 5T. Well, mostly stock. So far, I've thickened the center diff fluid and added stiffer rear springs. It weighs roughly 50 pounds, rolls on massive 8.5-inch tires, and comes equipped with a Spektrum 250 amp ESC and a big old Coke can of a motor, the Spektrum 7120. From the factory, Losi pairs that power system with a 17-tooth pinion and a 67-tooth spur and claims speeds of more than 50 miles per hour. Transparently, I've never reached that with stock Spektrum batteries. It took some massive aftermarket packs to finally push it past 50. Here's a link to that video. This truck is engineered to move a lot of weight really quickly, but every additional mile per hour is going to demand more from the motor, the ESC, and the drivetrain. So for our official baseline, we're going back to the setup Losi intended: stock electronics, stock gearing, and a pair of Spektrum 6800 Pro Basher batteries. Let's get that baseline established. As we go forward, I want to acknowledge this isn't a laboratory test, but we'll keep the setup and conditions as consistent as we reasonably can so that each upgrade gets a fair comparison. We're going to start with the pinion, then the ESC, followed by plenty of other goodies. First, we need a number to beat. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Looks like 47 is what we're chasing. All right, let's go ahead and get that pinion swapped over. I do want to spend a little time talking about theory versus reality. Theoretically, when we go from a 17-tooth pinion to a 20-tooth pinion, we're increasing the gearing by 17.6%. If the truck could pull that taller gearing perfectly, our top speed would rise by the same percentage. Realistically though, we already know it probably won't. 5T pinion swaps get a whole lot easier when you take off this side body panel, so let's go ahead and do that. There are 5 screws on the bottom. The shortest one goes underneath where the motor sits, and there is one on the top going from the battery tray down. Make sure you get that one too. My top motor mount screw required a lot of elbow grease. There's a ton of Loctite down in here. I needed to get out my soldering iron and apply a lot of heat, and then eventually I even got out a small blowtorch to finally get it to budge. Just be patient, take your time, use good techniques and tools, and you'll get it out. In my experience, the bottom motor mount screws were a lot easier to remove. Hopefully that'll be the case for you. Again, don't rush. Apply heat, use good tools, take your time. If it's not moving, apply heat. Trust me, you'll be glad you were patient rather than stripped a screw. The motor mount here does feel really substantial, and I appreciate that. It's been easy to get to go in and out. Once we get our motor out, we're going to go ahead and remove the pinion. Given the amount of power that we're going to be putting through this car, a lot of the important to-dos are going to be magnified in terms of their value. So let's make sure we clean our grub screw appropriately, and even take a cotton swab and clean down inside the screw hole in the pinion. That's going to allow our Loctite to contact the parts rather than just the dirt and grease around them. One of the parts I'm most excited about is this adjustable motor mount from Top Level RC. I bought it online, and it's going to eliminate the need for the precise spur and pinion mounting combinations that Losi sells. I'm also a big fan of the larger hex head that these require. It's going to make it a whole lot less likely that we strip these out when we get red Loctite in there. The spur on this truck is quite a bit wider than the pinion, so getting it aligned is not that difficult. Leave about a 2 or 3 millimeter gap between the motor mount and the pinion, and we'll be in good shape. I thought the mesh was set a little loose from the factory, so I'm going to make it a little bit tighter here. Once we get it to an initial location that we think feels good, we're going to tighten the top screw down to keep it secured in place. Once we've done that, we're going to check the mesh all around the spur and pinion and make sure we're not binding in one location while feeling good in another. This is a really important step. The distance in the mesh won't be uniform the entire way around the gears, and you're going to encounter problems if you don't check for binding around the entire perimeter of the spur and the pinion. Once that's set, we go in with our new top level motor mount and tighten the screws on the bottom. Again, make sure you're applying Loctite here. With that done, double check your mesh and make sure nothing moved. While we have the stock motor in, we're going to continue to use the Spektrum Pro Basher batteries, but once we upgrade our motor, we're going to switch over to some higher output packs that I have QS8s on. I don't want to melt the plugs on these batteries, and that's a legitimate possibility when we swap motors, but I do want to have as much continuity as possible. Alright guys, we're back on scene for our first test here. We've got our 20-tooth pinion, and we want to see what sort of changes that creates in this truck. We've got our GPS zeroed. I'm excited to get this thing out, and hopefully it rips a little harder. I'm going to do a couple of light pulls and just make sure everything's in good shape before we go. 3, 2, 1, go. "53 miles an hour. That's pretty consistent with what I've seen other people get, even though, in theory, we were expecting a higher number. Let's give it another pull. 3, 2, 1, go. Full throttle. Oh no, our GPS fell out on that one. Pretty consistent after picking that up off the road. Let's watch that back side by side. Full throttle. We went from 47 to 53 with just a pinion swap, a measured gain of 12.8% against a theoretical gearing increase of 17.6%. Real-world variables like wind and temperature always come into play, and each theoretical mile per hour becomes progressively harder to capture. So, as speeds climb, expect the gap between theory and reality to actually grow. Now, it's time for some serious power. Next up, we're replacing the stock Spektrum 250 amp ESC with a Castle Cobra 5 HV. Since both are already 12S capable, this doesn't change our gearing, motor KV, or theoretical top speed, but if the Cobra loses less energy through internal resistance and delivers more of the battery's available power to the motor under load, it could produce a real-world gain. We'll go ahead and get the stock ESC removed. We're also going to have to do some MacGyvering of the ESC setup. I'm going to end up using a ton of VHB and then some tie downs. I want to be able to use this stock ESC mount again, but I don't want to alter it in order to fit the ESC perfectly. I'm essentially creating a secondary ESC mount out of this old piece of M2C plastic that was intended for my Traxxas Max. VHB is super strong stuff. As long as we're applying it to a clean surface, we should be in good shape for this temporary test setup, though we will still add some mechanical retention. That doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. Whew. All right, let's get this wired back up and get to testing. Obviously, with this motor being sensorless, we're not going to be able to take full advantage of that element of the Cobra 5 HV with the stock motor, but we'll get everything else plugged in and ready to go. We're going to be switching to these CNHL batteries when we swap our motor over, but we're going to continue to run the Pro Bashers one more time with adapters for the ESC test. These are going in here right now just for a quick test and calibration of the ESC. Do be aware that, unlike some other ESCs, the Cobra 5 HV requires calibration before it's going to be functional. You're going to want to know what that protocol looks like and make sure you're prepared to do it. A new ESC coming to life is one of my absolute favorite sounds in this hobby. I would highly recommend that you don't test your 5T's new ESC on your bench like I did. We're using these EC5 to QS8 adapters for this test. I'd strongly discourage this. Adapters add another connection and more electrical resistance, and this much current can expose that weakness very quickly in the form of melting. Kind of made fun of people who hate on adapters in the previous video, and I actually ended up melting mine. Alright, let's get to testing. Wow.
Ow!
Alright, little longer runway here. Full throttle. What do we get? What do we get? Ooh, 55. Theoretically, that shouldn't be happening, but we'll talk about it a little more in a minute. Ready, 3, 2, 1, go. Might only be marginally faster, but it is definitely livelier. What we got? 55. Ready, 3, 2, 1, launch. So we gained another 2 miles per hour, about 3.8%, even though our gearing, motor KV, and theoretical top speed never changed. The most likely explanation is that the Cobra is losing less power through the ESC under load, allowing more of the battery's available voltage current to reach the motor. That can improve acceleration and, in this case, may have helped the truck pull 2 more miles per hour. If we ran just straight QS8s, we might see 56 or 57. There might be another mile per hour or two to be eked out by changing some ESC settings, but at just $15 for 6 additional miles per hour, the pinion swap may prove to be the most efficient speed increase per dollar we find in this entire series. The story of the ESC is a little more complicated. As a pure speed upgrade, $350 for 2 miles per hour is difficult to justify, but that isn't really why we installed the Cobra 5. It gives us the power delivery, data logging, adjustability, and motor compatibility we needed for everything coming next. The pinion is today's clear value winner, though the ESC is the doorway to a whole new realm of upgrades and possibilities for this truck. Coming up in our Phase 2 video, we're going to be swapping the motor to the massive Castle 2535 and seeing what the limits of this truck truly are. If you're still watching this video, that next one is most certainly for you, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming.